Courtney, by my watch, it's 9 a.m. Do I have a quorum?
Good morning. You do have a quorum.
Thank you. Can we go ahead and put the agenda up on the screen so the public can see it before we begin, please? All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Randall Brown, Chairman of the Executive Committee and the Council. I want to welcome everyone here today and thank you for your participation and involvement. It's key to getting our work done, so thank you very much for your attendance and participation today in advance. Our mission statement, Courtney, if we could put that up on the screen so everyone can see it as I read it. And our mission statement reads as follows. The mission of the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council is to increase independence, self-determination, productivity, integration, and inclusion for Louisianans with developmental disabilities by engaging in advocacy, capacity building, and systems change. All right. Thank you. And the protocols for today's meeting are here, and I'll read them. Council meetings shall be accessible via Zoom and live streamed on YouTube. Council or committee members will participate via Zoom and shall be considered present when they display a live feed video of their face with their first and last name. Have microphones muted unless called upon by the chairperson. Electronically raise their hand to request the chair recognize them to speak. Once recognized to speak by the chair, their microphone shall be turned on. After speaking, the microphone shall be returned to mute. Guests may participate via Zoom or observe meetings live on YouTube. All public meetings shall be recorded and may be made available on the council's YouTube channel as determined appropriate by the chairperson. Public comments submitted during a meeting via any formal format below shall be considered. During a Zoom meeting, guests may electronically raise their hand to request a comment. Upon being recognized to speak by the chair, their microphone should be turned on. After speaking, the microphone will be returned to mute. Post comments relevant to the item under consideration in the chat box. Post comments during the live stream of the meeting on the council's YouTube channel. And the link is listed there below. Public comments of a person's character will not be heard. If the comment continues after being asked to stop by the chairperson, council staff may be instructed to end the meeting. The chairperson will notify the executive committee of the occurrence. Council chair will seek guidance to determine if it is legally appropriate to redact or share the video of the meeting on the council social media. So those are the rules for today's meeting, as well as all our other meetings, I might add, that we're conducting during our Zoom pandemic phase here we're in. Okay, and so I think it's appropriate that we let the executive committee introduce themselves. So I've already done so as your chair, Randall Brown. As I call on you, please tell us who you are. Mr. Mike Billings.
Sorry, technical difficulty with the mute button. I'm Michael Billings. I'm a parent of children with Developmental Disabilities. Representing Region 2, a member of the Executive Council and Chair of the Self-Determination and Community Inclusion Committee.
Thank you, sir, and good morning. Miss Mary Tarver.
Good morning. I'm Mary Tarver. I'm a parent from Region 6, and I'm the chairperson for the Education and Employment Committee.
Thank you, Mary, and good morning. Okay. And Mr. Stephen Wynn.
Good morning. This is Stephen Wynn, self-advocate from the Jefferson Parish area.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. And Dr. Hyacinth McKee.
I do not see where she's been available to join us just yet.
Okay. She will join us shortly. And she is the vice chair of our council. So hopefully she will join us shortly. Okay. So we can move forward with the business. Can we put the agenda back up on the screen, please, Courtney? Okay, and so what I need now is the approval of the February 10th, 2021 meeting summary, which is the last meeting we had. So it's linked there. So hopefully you all have had a chance to review it. If I hear no objection, then it will be passed by unanimous consent by the committee. So does anyone object to the approval of the February 10th, 2021 meeting summary? Do I have any objections to the approval of the February 10th, 2021 meeting summary as written? Hearing and seeing no objection, the minutes from the February 10th, 2021 meeting, the summary is approved. Thank you. All right, now we'll begin with our legislative advocacy updates. And Courtney, would you like to lead us on that discussion, please?
Sure, thank you. All right, so legislative session has kicked off. It's underway. I believe our website at www.laddc.org has a banner which includes our bill tracking. So I would like for everyone to please visit our site and click on the bill tracking mechanism, and you can see all of the bills that have been proposed or filed. And we've categorized them into priorities. And we've also indicated if we were for or if we're against the proposed bill. If you would like to, I can take you to our site right now so that we can kind of glance at it if you would like.
Yes, please do. That way both ourselves and the public are made aware of how to do it and where to find it.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure. Let me get that going. Okay. Can everyone see our website?
Yes, I can see it.
So like I was stating, the very first banner is our 2021 legislative bill tracking. So I simply click on the banner and then this chart pops up. And it'll let you know all of the bills that we are following. We're letting you know who the author of the bill is. We give a synopsis of what the bill covers. We indicate if we're for or against it or if we're neutral about the subject matter. We've got it listed by priority. We give some notes about some of the bills. And we've also, if matters are moving on this bill, we keep this updated to let you know what's going on with this proposed bill. So I would like to actually go over the ones that have a priority 1.
Please do.
So of course, with House Bill 1, which covers the budget for fiscal year 2021 through 2022, since the bill did not include the additional funding for Families Helping Families that we're requesting, and for the $27.9 million to increase provider rates for DSWs to receive more pay, we're against that. Unless the language of that bill includes what we're requesting, we will be against what's being proposed. Again, we've sent out an action alert regarding this matter. And I believe I'm constantly being sent emails, and I'm not sure when this will be heard just yet. If there is other staff who happens to know when House Bill 1 will be heard, please let me know. Please chime in.
Public testimony is today.
Okay. Do we know what time today they're going to be?
I mean, it starts at 9 a.m. I don't know what time they would specifically get to Schedule 9, which is the Department of Health's piece of the budget. But it starts at 9 today. You can go to the legislative website if you're interested in watching public testimony. And our alerts indicated how you could respond or send in your public comment on the bill.
Yes, thank you very much, Brenton. Okay, and I believe there's actually quite a few items being heard today and tomorrow, but unfortunately we have committee meetings and council meetings today and tomorrow.
Correct.
All right. The next item on the list is actually something that was brought to the attention by Miss Kathy Dwyer, and it was about the dental care for adults with developmental disabilities. And during several meetings, it was indicated that this was something that the council was interested in supporting. So we have added it to our bill tracking list and with a priority 1 designation. The next item is House Bill 204. This is about practically the extension of the Appendix K, which allowed persons who lived in the homes of people receiving waiver services to be able to provide caregiver services. I know I was contacted quite frequently about support of this, and I felt that this was definitely something that the council would be in support of for that continuation to not just be throughout the COVID pandemic, but for it to be a permanent option. And then, of course, the last bill that's given a priority 1 designation is regarding the cameras bill, which is already on the council's advocacy agenda. Are there any objections from the executive committee about any of these bills that have been given a priority 1 designation?
Does anyone have objection to the bills that have been given priority 1 designation? I don't think we have any objection, Courtney.
Good deal. I believe Brenton and the other staff do a fabulous job with keeping up with our legislative items, and I would like to offer my appreciation and thank you for their work in this and keeping this updated on our website as well.
And on behalf of the council, I would like to echo your thanks to Brenton and the entire staff for their work on this. I know it's a lot of work, and y'all have done really well. And so I want to echo my appreciation to you on behalf of the council as well, to all of you. Thank you.
So there are some other items that caught our attention and we felt might need a little encouragement. And we've given those priority 2 designation. I've actually already been in contact with Representative Pat Moore regarding a bill that was proposed. And the way that the language was worded on that bill, it kind of indicated that a person with a developmental disability or with an intellectual disability would receive a harsher sentencing for committing certain crimes. And I felt that maybe she meant to indicate that it was if the victim was a person with an intellectual disability, rather the offender. But I believe Representative Moore has sent me an email stating that she intends to actually remove that clause entirely from the bill. But until that has officially been done and the bill is read appropriately, we will still be against that until it's done officially. So again, this is why we're keeping notes and keeping this up to speed, up to date, so that you all will know what the progress is with these items that we're keeping a close watch on.
Very good, and I'm glad to hear that Representative Moore is changing that, removing that language.
Correct. Okay. All right. So this was just an update to give you guys on what's currently going on. And we've still got a lot more to do. But that is your legislative advocacy update.
Thank you very much. And of course, it's available on our website as the first banner. To click on the banner and go there, and you'll get the most up-to-date information we have available on each bill we're tracking. So please, everyone, keep that in mind and visit our website frequently during the session. Okay, and so can we put our agenda back up for the public, Courtney, before I move forward? Thank you. All right, the next thing we have to discuss is funding for COVID-19 vaccinations. So again, Courtney, you've shared with me what this is about, but would you like to start the discussion on this topic?
Sure. And actually, I was just reminded that on our legislative tracking, even though we have positions indicated if we're for or against, it's regarding issues contained within that bill, not necessarily for the bill itself. We do have to be mindful if we're committing
Correct.
lobbying versus advocating.
Correct. And so thank you very much for that clarification, Courtney.
Yes. Okay. All right. So some wonderful news. I've been contacted by Administration for Community Living that all state developmental disabilities councils will be receiving a portion of a pot of money of $4 million to specifically address individuals with developmental disabilities receiving COVID-19 vaccinations. There's a different formula that's being applied to this $4 million, and I have not been given the amount of how much Louisiana will be receiving, but I've already requested from our federal funding partners to request the appropriations of that funding. And I believe we are imminently waiting to hear how much we will be receiving. I should be receiving that amount either today or tomorrow, if not by the weekend. And they're wanting to disperse that funding immediately. We will be required to collaborate with other entities that are also receiving funding through the American Rescue Plan, which I believe we're already connected with our DD network. So we will have to collaborate with Disability Rights Louisiana, with LSU Human Development Center. We will definitely be collaborating with a lot of the members of MDAC, which includes the Governor's Office of Elderly Affairs, Office of Aging and Adult Support Services, and of course, the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs. Excuse me. When we receive the funding, we are actually prescribed to we're only allowed to do certain activities with the funding. and we'll be required to do separate federal reporting on how we spent this funding. So although we're receiving funding in our grant, it's not going to be tied to our plan. They're not requiring it to be tied to our state plan. But I would like to remind you guys that we do have an activity on our plan that is to address COVID-19. And we actually have $2,500 allotted to that activity already. So what I'm proposing is for whatever money that we receive imminently, that we add the 2,500 to it, and then we bring that pot of money into the collaboration activity. But again, I wanted to get the council's approval to do that before I even offered that to our collaborative partners.
Thank you for that. I certainly think it's a very good idea, since we already had this in mind to do before the federal legislation was passed, and it's part of our plan. I think that's a very good suggestion. I'll let the others on the committee speak as well, but I think given that we were already working in that area, I think adding the money we've allocated to the money we receive is a good start. Does anybody else have anything to add on the topic?
Courtney,
Yes,
I had a question about what the activities were. Like, is it to help with transportation to get people to get vaccinated, or what were some of the activities? Do you know?
Yes, ma'am. I actually have the list in front of me. So I think it's 7. So excuse me. Education about the importance of receiving a vaccine, identifying people unable to independently travel to a site, helping with scheduling a vaccine appointment, arranging or providing accessible transportation, providing companion or personal support, reminding people of their second vaccination appointment if needed, and providing technical assistance to local health departments or other entities on vaccine accessibility. So we're prescribed to do one or more of those activities.
Already, as
Correct.
part of our
Well, when we
plan.
receive this funding, it has to be spent conducting at least one of those activities.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. Now, I have a quick question, Courtney, if we don't have any others from the committee at the moment. Have we already heard from our partners in this endeavor, Disability Rights Louisiana, the other partners we have that will be required to work with? Have we been in contact with them about this yet at all? Or have they been in contact with us?
There's been an email or two exchanged between myself and Disability Rights Louisiana, but we haven't all three come together yet.
All right.
And I think we're kind of waiting to see how much money we're all going to be.
Understood. I just wanted to know if since y'all are all already being made aware of the legislation, what's basically going to be required for each of us.
Right.
I was just wondering if there had been any early communication on the matter yet.
We've started, but again, without knowing specifics, it's
Sure.
hard for us to plan or
That's understandable. And I would expect that as soon as we get those particulars, y'all will collaborate immediately. I know everybody on that list collaborates with us often on a number of our issues and activity items. And so I anticipate the same good rapport with this matter as well. And I look forward to hearing what y'all come up with.
Me as well. Thank you.
Okay. there's the topic of membership participation. I wanted to bring up, this is here today because I wanted to bring up that I've had extreme difficulty in getting quorums for meetings, basically since the year started, since January. It's been very difficult to maintain quorums for our meetings, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to publicly state and request to all our council members the importance of the work we're having to do and the need for our participation. And I say that understanding completely that we all are busy individuals and there's a lot going on in our lives as we are trying to navigate our pandemic live, schedules and lives. And Zoom doesn't, it makes things easy on some levels. And it's also, I think we have a lot of Zoom fatigue for all the number of meetings we have. And I understand that. But I want to make very clear, especially in the coming weeks, we have a lot of very important work that needs to get done. On the 28th, next week of April, which I believe is next Wednesday, we'll have a full day of meetings on top of the meetings we have scheduled for tomorrow all day, which are our quarterly meeting. And of course, we know that meeting on the 28th is going to be to choose our next executive director. So I want to take this opportunity to let y'all know and stress how important it is that we all attend, that every council member who has been appointed by the governor attend all of our meetings that are scheduled coming up, tomorrow's as well as next week's on Wednesday. It's vital work we're having to do, and we really, really need everyone who can be present to be present. So I just wanted to take that opportunity to let y'all know how important your participation is as members of the council. We literally have to have it to conduct business at all times. So I just wanted to stress that, and I want to thank y'all for your service. I know how difficult it is to juggle, our lives on any given day, and with the pandemic and all the stresses that come out of that for us and for our community. I fully understand, but I want to make clear that your participation as council members is vital. The governor placed this duty on us and gave us the responsibility to carry out this work, and I think y'all do a phenomenal job. But I want to make very clear when you're prioritizing your work, what you have to do in the coming week to really the rest of the year. The work we have to do is vital coming up. So please be mindful of that as you're scheduling things to do. And when we send out doodle polls, please get those back to us as quickly as we can, because that's the main thing I use to determine when and how we meet for all of our meetings. So when you get a doodle poll, I know we get a lot of them sometimes, but that's because we have an ambitious agenda and it's what our council wants. And so in order to carry it out, we have to be present. So please, let's all bear that in mind. And I'll make the same plea and statement tomorrow as well to the full council. I'm not singling out just the executive committee, but I wanted to take this time to stress how important it is that we are present and participate in the business ahead. Okay.
You have a
Now,
comment in the chat.
could we please read it, Mary Lee? Thank you.
It is from Kathleen Canino. Hey y'all, I wanted to comment about the action alert. The way they are done has changed, and I think if you can go back to the previous way they were done, you would have a lot more participation.
Thank you for that. Your comments noted, Kathleen. Now, if we can move forward, I think the plan to resume in-person activities is our next discussion items.
You have another comment,
Yes.
is from Steven. He says, I will need to drop off for a little bit. I will be back.
Okay. And I believe that Dr. McKee is trying to enter the meeting also. So Courtney, if we could check with Dr. McKee and make sure that she's able to get in. I think that will take a brief pause here, not really a recess, but a pause to see if we can get the vice chair connected. Okay. I believe she's on now. So, okay, thank you. So we'll move forward. Thank you, Stephen, for letting us know that.
And actually, Mr. Brown, the next
Yes.
item was recommendations of topics for the OCDD webinars.
Oh, that's correct. I'm sorry. Right. So the discussion now would be recommendation of topics for the webinars we're collaborating with the Office of Citizens with Developmental Disabilities to do. And if we remember, this is based on the offer that Julie and her staff made to collaborate with us to have some videos and some materials made to assist with various topics that we might need help with in terms of getting information out from their staff to the community. And this was based on an offer Julie graciously made to us to work to get more information to both to council members and the community at large to make sure that everyone got their information they need for various topics. And so what they have asked of us and what our staff is asking of us now is we need some ideas for topics. So I'll open it first to the council, to the executive committee. What are some suggestions y'all have for topics for these videos that FCDD can help us and we can help them to collaborate with? Courtney, have we had any suggestions from anyone already, from the public or from OCDD or anyone?
No, sir, I have not received anything.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear or get that clarification before we begin this discussion.
Hey, this is Mary. I thought that, and I don't know if I'm remembering right, it seems like Crystal had brought something up at one of the meetings about, and that maybe was when it first got discussed. And Julie had said that they thought that was a good idea, but I don't remember what the issue was. Does that ring a bell with anybody?
I recall something about flow charts, wanting some sort of visual representation of maybe eligibility for services or the processes, but OCDD already has a visual material work group that they've been meeting, and they're already developing some information along those lines. So I don't know if that would overlap something that's already occurred.
Well, do we have any suggestions for topics that could be covered? Does anybody have any ideas they'd like to share?
I don't right now, but maybe the full council would have some. I'm trying to search my brain because I felt like that there was something else that we had talked about with that. I'll try and remember.
Well, if we're comfortable, I think it's perfectly a great idea to not only take the suggestions we have here today, but in the report I give on the executive committee portion of today's meeting, I can certainly ask for ideas from the council tomorrow. I think that's something that we can easily do, and that way we'll have their input as well. I think it's important to have not only our input, but everybody's input on the council. So, but I do believe we had a suggestion in the chat. Can someone read that, please?
Yes, you have a comment from Jessica Michaud, and she said, accessing IFS and FFF dollars, how to access them.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Michaud. So there's one suggestion we have noted. So is this something we're comfortable that I bring up tomorrow at the full council meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't really need a motion. I can just bring it up saying that we're requesting topics be submitted for the OCDD collaboration we're doing for videos. And so I will make a note to do that tomorrow. And hopefully we'll get, and it'll also give us time to think about it. And I'll give our input tomorrow on the topic. Anything else on this topic? Okay. Courtney, can we put the agenda back up on the screen, please? All right, next is our plan for resuming in-person activities. I want to make something clear as we begin this discussion. As long as we have an executive order from our governor on this issue, which is a public health emergency, as long as we're under the public health emergency by executive order, we will continue to meet in this format via Zoom and remotely for our protection and the protection of the community, because the pandemic is not yet at a stage where we can safely meet. What this discussion is about is what it looks like as we begin to move forward in planning for when that order gets lifted. And no one yet knows when that will be. And it was shared, I believe, yesterday that the federal government is extending their proclamations on the matter for another 90 days as of yesterday, I believe. So I don't yet know what the governor may decide on that issue moving forward, but I do believe as of now, we are still in the public health emergency and will be for some time. The discussion that we have to have is how it looks when that order finally, whenever that day comes, because we don't yet know when that'll be, but it will be sometime in the not too distant future. And so we need to begin to discuss what the process looks like for us to resume in-person activities. I don't think throwing an arbitrary date out there is, one, even possible, or two, even responsible of me. I think that we have to look at a number of factors before we open up to public meeting. The main thing is I think we have to pay attention to infection rates and vaccination availability, as well as what the numbers, how many vaccinations are occurring. I think that sort of thing is important. So those are numbers I'm looking at as we would determine exactly when we open back up in person. But also the important thing to know is that we haven't met in person for now over a year. And so we would have to have contracts renegotiated for our hotels and such. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to let Courtney know that even though, and let the staff know that even though we're in a pandemic and we will continue to follow the executive order for the emergency to the letter, I wanted to give the Courtney and the staff a heads up to go ahead and be planning for resuming contracts for when we open back up, because that's going to take some time. I think at least 6 months, to be frank, because we have to go through the contract process. Because again, it's been over a year at this point. So, I think it's pertinent to have them go ahead and start looking into options for when we do resume in-person activities for our meetings, especially. But I'll yield the floor for discussion now on the topic.
There is a panelist with a hand raised.
Yes. Is it Dr. McKee?
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, committee.
Yes.
I was wondering if we could possibly do a survey of the DD Council, just a quick, maybe Survey Monkey or, 5 or 6 questions, just to kind of assess the pulse and where the council is in terms of their feelings about going back to in-person. I know there are some employers out there that are doing like little quick surveys, asking them, would a hybrid model work? Would how do you feel about full in-person? So perhaps maybe a quick five question, 6 question survey, so we can have some data just to kind of jump on. Thank you.
Well, that's a good suggestion. Thank you. I think we can certainly do that. Hopefully the council would participate in that quickly upon receiving it, and that would give us some feedback on their feelings in the process as well. Thank you for that suggestion, Madam Vice Chair.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea because everybody's kind of in a different situation, whether you've been vaccinated or not, or
Right.
whatever. It's a comfort level, for that. I know at the hospital that we've been doing hybrid meetings where some people come to some of the meetings in person and others are on Zoom. And so there's lots of different options. But I agree with Hassan. We need to know what everybody's comfort level is so that we can put together some plans that make sense.
Right. And that's why we're having today's discussion. That's why I put it on here this early, so we can begin the process of how this looks. This is not here for us to have a decision today as much as get a sense of how we want to move forward and the best way to move forward. So I thank y'all for your suggestions here, and we can certainly survey everyone.
Randall? This is
Yes,
Mike.
sir. Mike.
Yes, to piggyback on Mary and Hyacinth, that's one of the things I was wanted to bring up was possibility of a virtual, due to the various people having different levels of concern over being in those type of settings. And also,
Right.
we need to take a look at, or I feel we should take a look at, as we begin to return to normal and consider these type of things, the possibility of when we return to actual council meetings, having a Zoom for the folks who are out of the area, and so public can attend, because we've via YouTube and Zoom, we've had a lot of participation.
What?
Public.
Right.
Today we have 7 attendees, and typically when we were in person, we'd have 1 or 2.
Right. And while I wholeheartedly agree with that, what we're going to have to take a look at is what state law will look like once we are open. There's a bill to make, I believe there's a bill to make this available as an option in meetings, because the reason we didn't do this before is it's not in state law to do it this way. Right. So once the executive order is lifted, it will depend a lot on what state law looks like at that point. but obviously we want to have participation. And so we definitely want to design a process that is fair and free for everyone who wants to participate to be able to do so. But we will have to follow state law as it is written once we begin moving forward after the proclamation has been lifted. The proclamation, the emergency declaration, is how we are able to meet via Zoom at all. And so what state law looks like is what will govern our decision there. But of course, we are advocating for the changes to make it possible to continue this, and we will continue to do that. So I just want to make clear we want that, and we'll do everything we can to make that happen. But we will have to follow state law as it is at the time we began opening up to in-person meetings. On that note, I do have a suggestion. I have wanted to keep things open, and whenever we first began to design the Zoom protocols, I was adamant that the chat feature in every possible way be made available for everyone to participate, because Zoom was brand new to most of us. And, I think it's worked out pretty well, but I think we're a year into it, or very nearly a year into it for our meetings. And so I wanted to take time to assess whether or not we want to keep the chat feature active throughout the whole meetings as we've been doing, because one of the things, while the chat feature is great, one of the things that makes it difficult, especially on days like tomorrow, we'll have a number of participants, is you have what I guess would be considered sidebar conversation to an extent happening within the chat throughout the day. That, of course, when we go back to in-person meetings, doesn't have the same effect. We'll be at our table as we always are, as council members, and the public will be seated around the room, at the back or the front, however the meeting room is designed. But one of the things I want to discuss is it's actually more in line to have people raise their hands and be recognized by the chair, which we are doing, but we also have the chat box where people can put in their chat, which everyone sees as soon as they put it in. So do we want to do a test run and see what it would be like to have, let's say, tomorrow's meeting without the chat feature engaged and just hands raised called upon by the chair for participation? What's the feeling on that?
Randall, this is Mike.
Yes, sir.
I think that would be something we really should consider. Sometimes the chat gets a little either ahead of us or behind us, and like I said, we either have to go back on the topic or it's bringing the topic we're not yet at.
Right.
If the folks are raising their hand, it should be on the topics that we're currently covering. So I think it would be a good idea.
Okay. And it's something that I would like for us to try tomorrow, because it is more in line with what an actual council meeting is like. And I want us to start getting back into that mode of thinking as a council, because once we open back up, even with Zoom components, it's more in line with Robert's Rules of Order to have to be called upon by the chair for speaking and for getting heard. And so
You have public comment, or I guess
Yeah.
just comment. It's from Bambi.
yes, could you please read it, Mary Lee?
FYI, people with disabilities and their caregivers could request an ADA accommodation to attend meetings virtually.
That's correct. And thank you for bringing that up, Bambi. That is correct. You can make a request for accommodation for that, as Bambi has pointed out. So, but if no one today objects, I would like to try tomorrow's quarterly meeting without the chat box active, and which would require, just like we do at regular council meetings, to wait to be called upon by the chair to speak. There wouldn't be the continuous flow of the chat feature during tomorrow's meeting. I'd like to try that out, because that, again, that is more in line with how our meetings actually work in person. And so I would, with no objection, I'd like to try tomorrow's quarterly meeting without the chat feature engaged.
Randall, this is Mary. What about the people that are on YouTube? Does it, how would they?
They have to submit
that
their,
work?
they can comment, but they have to submit their comments through email, I do believe. Am I right about that, Courtney or Marilyn?
No, sir. What typically happens is if someone makes a comment on our YouTube channel during the meeting, we're supposed to take time in the meeting to pause to allow for that comment to be read aloud during the meeting.
Right, okay. So see, I had not realized that either. So, but that's still one of the things you are doing when you give comment to us, if there's comment from the YouTube channel. So, again, is it something y'all can let me know that is out there during the meeting? Could someone be monitoring that and let me know there's comments or questions where I can address them the same way I would if someone's in person? Is that possible?
Correct. We already have staff assigned to do that.
Right. Right. And
So-
so the point I'm making is they can get word to me there's a question or comment through the YouTube, correct?
Correct.
And I can acknowledge that just the same way I do as I have been doing, as we have been doing. So yes, I think the matter would still be covered even if we disengage the chat. They still
And
have a
then-
way to get word to me.
I would suggest like having another, like, tell everybody again how to raise their hand, because I'm terrible at finding the button, especially if it's on
Right.
my phone. Like, I tend to be like, hey, and I'm just waving at you. So so is I think that we need to be, I agree with you that it can be distracting and get us off kilter, because by the time comments that maybe you're off the subject. But I do want to make sure that everybody is aware of how to make the comments when they need to make them, and just kind of, I think Courtney's, what she was reading, like that we did originally say, like we would pause and let, people like take a moment to see, is there anything on this subject that we need to read. And we tend not to do that, all of us, because we're like just in this mode of getting through the agenda and whatever discussion is being had. So we probably will all have to be retrained on our the meeting flow or whatever, and making sure that we are taking those pauses.
Well, you're right. And remember, we wrote these protocols a year ago. And so I think we all have gotten much more Zoom conversant than we were a year ago. I think it's safe to say. And so I think we tend to get caught up in the new flow and rhythm of Zoom as we know it. So yeah, I'll definitely make allowances to make sure that we are paying closer attention to our YouTube audience's questions or comments. I know that staff has been monitoring that and getting that word to me as needed, but there is a considerable lag time between what's happening live and when the YouTube comments are available. So in order for our meetings not to last for hours and hours and hours, I have often probably inadvertently, certainly not on purpose, not paid as close attention to the YouTube comments as I should. And so I'll do better about that. But having said that, if no one has an objection, I think it'll be a unanimous consent of the committee to try tomorrow's meeting without the chat box engaged to see how it goes and to give us an opportunity. And I will make sure, to Mary's very good point, to make sure everyone knows that we're not limiting comment. We're not limiting how you comment. We're just trying out what's more in line with our in-person meetings, which would be to raise your hand and wait for the chair to recognize you before you comment. And so I will certainly go over tomorrow how to raise our hand as we begin tomorrow's meeting as part of the housekeeping when we start. I'll go over how to do that, and we'll see how this goes tomorrow, and just as a test, and hopefully things will go as smoothly as we expect. But I will certainly make clear throughout the day tomorrow how to raise your hand and be mindful of comments that are being given through YouTube, as well as making sure I acknowledge hands as they're raised. Is there any objection?
You have a hand raised right now.
And who?
Hyacinth.
Yes, Dr. McKee, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for being recognized. Was wondering if we're going to make sure that we have support, full support in manpower in order to monitor the chat box, number one, and to be able to monitor that chat box in a way that it's orderly, meaning, who put their hand up first and second and all of that kind of stuff, number one. Number two, are we going to make sure that we carve out time after each section to make a statement or something like you typically do, Mr. Chair, and say, now I'll take comments from the chat. And if we are going to make sure we build that in after every point after the agenda. And I know, Mr. Chair, you do a really good job at trying to manage all of this. Because it is challenging, and I'm sure everyone on this call has had the opportunity to manage meetings through Zoom. It is extremely challenging, and we've, again, got progressively better. But I believe that if we do try this out tomorrow, maybe that we make sure we have just some basic parameters for today so that there's no shock to the public tomorrow on what our intent is. And so, just wanted to make that known.
Thank you. As noted, I believe the staff is already doing a pretty good job of and accustomed to the format of letting me know whose hand is raised. And I'll often ask, which came first, because I want to give the person who's been, it's the same as if we're in person and they're at the microphone at what's either the back or the front of the room, depending on how we're set up that day. I want to give who has been standing the longest, in this case, hand raised, the opportunity to speak first. That remains what I will always attempt to do, either in this format or when we go back in person. So I think the staff is ready and prepared for, letting me know that information. I'll certainly talk with them before we meet tomorrow to try to make sure we, have everything in place so everyone can get recognized. Tomorrow may move a little differently. It may move a little slower. I can make every effort to make sure everyone's being heard properly. But thank you for that. Madam Vice Chair, your comments are noted. Any
You
other
also
discussion?
have I'm so sorry. You also have a public comment.
Yeah. It's relevant to this discussion.
I think so.
Could you please read it?
It is from Nicole Flores. I'd also like to comment about virtual/hybrid attendance in the future. Virtual options have allowed many of our families to be able to attend where accessible transportation was a barrier to attending in person, as well as medically fragile individuals concerned about the risk of meeting in person in groups. It's a great thing to keep in mind, hoping hybrid attendance options would be possible after public health emergency.
We share your hope, Nicole, and we certainly agree with everything you just said. We want participation. We want the word out. We want everyone in our community to feel valued and involved. And so in every way that we can, we will design our process to meet that need. Again, we will have to follow the law as we're required to do, however that may look after the pandemic, but we will continue to move forward. I think we've all learned valuable lessons on how important this participation level has been for this year for us. And we've taken note of that. And we certainly want everyone involved who wants to be involved. And so thank you very much for your comment. It is noted, Nicole. So if there's no objection, then by unanimous consent, the executive committee agrees to try tomorrow's meeting with the chat box disengaged and to just allow comment based on hands raised and being recognized by the chair. Is there any objection to that? And again, we're trying this out for tomorrow's meeting and we'll see how it goes. No objection. That will be how we move forward for tomorrow's meeting. Okay. Courtney, can we put the agenda back up on the screen, please?
Actually, if I may make a comment.
You may make a comment, certainly.
The staff will be looking into disengaging the chat feature. I don't know, since we've already got the meeting set up and the link out there, I don't know if it's going to cause us to have to create a new meeting without that feature for that webinar. So I'm just letting you know preemptively, we may have to change the link for the meeting. I'm not sure yet. We're going to have to play with that. So
Okay.
If that is the case, I'll be sending out an email to all the council members and we'll try to update our website as quickly as possible.
Thank you for that. And I apologize for the technical work that's going to cause, but I think it's worth trying tomorrow.
Right.
So thank you for that.
Not a problem. And I will share the screen.
And again, throughout the day today, feel free to reach out to me, Courtney, as you have information on how it's going and what, how you feel it's going to go. And if you need my feedback on anything to do with this topic tomorrow or for tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So our last thing that's up for discussion is we have discovered that our 50th anniversary is this year, correct, Courtney?
Correct. The Disability Rights Act of 1970 was passed, and as a result, the Louisiana Council was created in 1971. So we are celebrating our golden anniversary this year.
Wow. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. And so the question is there anything we'd like to do to mark that anniversary? As a council, obviously we can't meet in person, but is there anything we would like to do to mark or call attention to the 50th anniversary of our council? Does anybody have any thoughts or ideas on the topic? Okay, well, certainly I think we can certainly bring that up on social media that it's our birthday. You know, and our golden anniversary, that's a big milestone. So certainly that's something I would think that we can get out on social media. I don't know if we would like to do any sort of video or presentation regarding it or not. I wanted to get the committee's feedback. And Mary, would you like to speak on the topic?
Yes, I got my hand to work.
Yes, you did. You did. And so you have the floor.
Okay. I was wondering, like, if we could do maybe do something like like if the governor would do a proclamation thanking the DD Council or recognizing the DD Council. And maybe we could use that for social media and trying to get the word out. I think the governor has done a great job working with the DD Council and with so many people that I feel like we should at least reach out and see if there's something we can do.
No, you're absolutely right. And I do believe Bambi has indicated that, yes, that would be possible. And so thank you, Bambi. So we'll get with Bambi about the wording, how it should go, and all of those particulars. And I think that is a great idea, Mary. So thank you for that. And thank you, Bambi, for your willingness to get that to the governor for his consideration. Is there anything else we might have ideas for on the topic?
Maybe we can do like little, flashbacks even from some of the archives that we have of older, like newsletters or whatever on different things that we've done. Like, we'll probably surprise a lot of people about how far we've come. When you see it in writing, it just has such a big impact.
Sure.
The different acts and, a list of recognizing past chair people, just kind of keeping the word out about how much the DD Council has done, partners that we've worked with, and projects and legislation we've been able to advocate for.
That became successful, right?
Right.
I think you're right. Thank you for that. I know Courtney's getting these ideas down as we're speaking, so I'll give opportunity for her and the rest of the staff to do that. But are there any other comments or suggestions?
You have
with
a
regard-
hand raised from public.
Yes, could we acknowledge who is it?
I can't tell.
Okay.
Courtney, can you tell?
Yes, it's Miss Bambi Palazzola.
Okay.
Okay.
Bambi, yes, you have the floor, Bambi. Thank you for being here. Bambi, you have the floor.
Miss Palazzola, we can't hear you. Oh,
her mic's not working. Okay. Sorry about that. But Bambi, we will get with you on the proclamation probably very soon. I would suspect. And thank you so much for your willingness to do that and your work you do with us on the council and for the community, Bambi. there any other topic? Any other discussion of the topic from the council, from the committee, rather? Okay.
I believe we have a chat from Ms. Paulazzola.
Could you please read it?
Sure. It says, I agree with Mary about past accomplishments. A new senator asked in committee last week, exactly what does the DDC do? And my heart dropped. We need to get the word out because we have so many new legislators this term.
Right. And that's very important to note, that the reason that is happening so much so is because there's a lot of freshman legislators who took office and the pandemic began. And so they haven't had the opportunity to see us in person, involved the way we always historically have been. So I think that's a very important point. And noted, Bambi. Thank you. And thank you, Mary, for the suggestion. Any other discussion?
If I may recommend something, and it's just a
Yes, please.
So I think all of you were on the council when we celebrated the 30th anniversary of Act 378. And we were in person then, and we
Right.
actually held somewhat of a reception after, I believe it was after our committee meetings and the
It
day
was, yes.
meeting. So on the chance of happen to resuming in-person activities before the end of the year, before the end of December 30th, would y'all be interested in doing something like that again for our 50th anniversary?
Well, if it's safe to do so, I think so. But our first and foremost concern is when it becomes safe to do that. But we can certainly leave that at the top of the agenda for us to review consistently as we review the public health emergency and how we move forward. But if everyone's comfortable with that, certainly we could. And I believe Bambi has another comment from the chat. So if we could please read that.
Bambi says, if I recall, there's a long list of past accomplishments. Is it linked somewhere on the website?
Courtney, are our accomplishments linked on the website
I would have to
in a concise format?
There's a lot of information contained
Yes,
on the website.
right.
I'll look into that.
Yes, and if it is, then let's highlight it because it's our birthday. But if not, let's see if we can put something together that highlights. I know there's a lot of accomplishment over a 50-year span. So, if we could get it chronicalized in a way that's easy to read, a timeline, if you will, I think that would help everyone. Any other comment, question on the topic? Okay, hearing no other, I think our business is concluded for today, is it not?
Correct. All that's left on the agenda is for public comment and then adjournment.
Okay. I want to thank you all for your participation today, and I'm going to open the floor to public comment.
Oh, wait,
we have any?
Dr. McKee has her hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. McKee, you have the floor.
Already, huh? We having some text.
Well, yeah.
It's okay. I needed to move. I was directed by one of our committees to motion something in executive
yes.
committee.
Yes.
And I didn't want to leave without doing what I was
instructed to. Yes.
So thank you for being recognized. The motion is to ensure that all contracts that are with the DDC include language such as cultural diversity, cultural humility, and ensuring that the contractual and contractors, I'm going to word this correct, are engaging in practices that are culturally inclusive. That's the best way I can word it. So let me clearly state that again. The motion is that
Sure.
all contracts written by the DDC include cultural humility, cultural inclusive practices. So, and we can probably pull it up and word it.
We need to do so, yes.
Yeah, but the concern was that the contracts that we engage in with people that want to do business with the council did not reflect cultural inclusivity. And so, and diversity.
And so as a result, this language for this motion would ensure that all contracts and all contractors we contract with be mindful of cultural diversity in their work with us.
Absolutely.
So Courtney, do we have that language available to put up on the screen at this point?
Thank you for writing that. And then once we talk about this motion, then I'll have another one that I have to put with that one.
And so Courtney will give you a moment to get that worded and get that up on the screen so I can read it before we bring the issue to a vote.
Let me.
So we now have a motion on the floor by our Vice Chair, Dr. Hyacinth McKee, to ensure all contracts with the Developmental Disabilities Council include language that address, identify cultural diversity and humility, and that selected contractors are engaging in practices that are culturally inclusive. So I'll ask first, Madam Vice Chair, do you agree with the language?
Yes, I agree with the language.
Okay. And so now I call for a second to this motion. Do we have a second to Dr. McKee's motion to ensure all contracts with the council include language that address, identify cultural diversity and humility, and that selected contractors are engaging in practices that are culturally inclusive?
This is
Do I
Mike
have-
with the motion.
Yes, sir. You second the motion?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So we now have a motion from Dr. McKee and seconded by Mr. Mike Billings. Do we have any discussion of the motion? Do we have anybody abstain? Does anyone abstain from the motion? Hearing none, do we have any objection to this motion? Does anyone object to this motion? Hearing no objection, the motion is passed. Thank you.
I believe you're supposed to get public comment.
I'm sorry. So before I redo it, do we have any public comment on this motion?
And staff, I have my screen shared, so I cannot see if hands are raised or chats.
Okay.
I do not see any hands raised or chat.
So I'll call for the vote again. Do I have anyone abstain from this motion? Does anyone abstain? Hearing no one abstain, do I have any objections to the motion? Does anyone object to this motion as it's written on the screen? Hearing no objection, the motion is passed. Thank you. Now, Dr. McKee, you said you had a second motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you for the time. Second motion is to that all contracts that the request for proposal process and solicitation of proposals, and I'm trying to word it,
Sure, take your time.
are inclusive of minority-owned businesses, I'm trying to word it. Y'all have to walk me through this one.
Sure.
So this is the intent, because this is what I'm gathering from our last meeting, that when proposals and solicitation for proposals go out from the DD Council, that the concern is that the solicitations for the proposals are not inclusive or not reaching people of diverse backgrounds. And they're not open so much to minority-owned businesses or women-owned businesses, small businesses that are, if you will, part of like the Hudson Initiative. And so the concern is that the contracts that we are entering in typically come from a demographic of people of non-color. They're awarded to people of non-color. My intent is to make sure that I word this motion so that our proposal, solicitation for proposals and request for proposals are inclusive of all people, and that minority-owned women, minority-owned businesses, people of color have access to this opportunity. And so I'm trying to word it in such a way that, because a comment was made about, a motion actually was made to ensure that contracts are open to Louisiana, or giving a preference or to Louisiana residents based on demographical location. So my request to the committee is to, if that is something that we're permitting, that we need to ensure that we are giving opportunities to people of color as well in these solicitation for proposals. So, this is just something for us maybe to talk more about, but that is what my motion is for that.
So just to make sure I'm clear on what you're saying, what we want to do is we want to make sure that during the solicitation of proposals phase, we want to make sure that minority-owned businesses and people of color, that we're getting the word to those communities in a better way than we have currently done. this point. That we're getting word to them of this possibility, this opportunity, so that they can participate in the process should they choose.
Yes, Mr. Chair, but also there was dialogue about contracts or there's a preference to be given to Louisiana residents
Correct. And I
in the
remember
competitive
that.
process.
Yes.
Which
I
of course, I'm a Louisiana resident. I'm not going to have
Right.
an issue with that.
Right.
But if we're giving a preference to Louisiana residents, where does that line begin and end for minority-owned businesses and people of color and veterans? So I think maybe, I moved that the contract solicitation process includes a distribution channel or source that includes people of color and minority and women-owned business.
There you go. Because I think in doing that, I think they will automatically be welcomed into the process as we are currently doing. And I think what is happening oftentimes is we're not reaching the groups that you're rightly highlighting in the disparity here. And so I think we have to make a much more concerted effort to reach all Louisianans. So
Miss Mary has her hand raised.
yes, Mary.
Hey, I was just wondering if also it should be that the any business that's owned by somebody with developmental disabilities would also be included in that, like to make it I guess more inclusive of our communities that we're
Sure.
a part of. And then I thought, and my other question was about the state. Do our contracts go through the state process where they have the website where all the information is put? And so people who have businesses, is that one way that we use through whatever mechanisms the state uses for the contracts to put them out there?
Before we continue, Mary, I need to, the parliamentarian has rightly brought to my attention that on this motion we're discussing, I forgot to ask for a second. We got into wording and we're starting discussion. I actually need a second so discussion can continue. So do I have a second to this current motion from Dr. McKee that we're still working on the language of?
But do I need to clearly state the motion again so that Courtney
I'll do
has
so.
it?
I'll do so as
Okay.
it's listed.
Thank you,
With
Mr. Chair.
your permission, I'll read it as it's currently listed. The motion currently before us for discussion, and we are still working with wording, but the motion currently before us is the request / solicitation for proposal advertisement process be inclusive of minority, women, and self-advocate owned businesses. And so that's where we are at the moment. Do I have a second to this motion so we can continue discussion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mary. So now Mary seconds. So now discussion can continue. And I apologize for cutting you off, Mary, but I want to make sure we were in order. And thank you, Madam Parliamentarian, for bringing that to my attention.
Thank you.
Mary, you have the floor.
I guess I wanted to find out on the current process that we use on any contracts and how we get the word out to people that we do have a contract for proposal. Do we go through like the state websites and some of the places, that businesses just generally know to look to see if there's something going on that they might be interested in?
Courtney, would you or any of the staff like to speak to our current process as it has been?
Yes. So we have a listserv of businesses who have they've submitted their application for funding, or they go to our website and see if they scroll over a certain item and it says application for funding, they can apply to submit a proposal if we currently are soliciting proposals, or even when we're not in a current state of soliciting proposals. But we have a list, a master list of people who have requested to receive this information. And then we also, of course, distribute it through a separate listserv for our DDC news. If certain initiatives are targeting like education, then there are certain education entities that will make sure receive that solicitation of proposal. Or like it was the first responder initiative, I made sure to send it to certain first responder and law enforcement agencies so that they knew we were trying to get this initiative started and to try to solicit some feedback or to get some interested parties to want to join in or possibly submit their own proposal. But so that's how the DD Council has traditionally been advertising for their solicitation of proposals. It's because we have a
Okay,
list
thank you.
that's separate from our DDC news listserv. Correct.
And so I think what we need to focus on is getting the word out about our process, and that, you know, when we're looking for proposals, is making sure we're getting the word out in every way we can to our community so they can have the opportunity to apply and be considered for our contract process. So the question is, are we done with the wording of the motion? Is this something we're all comfortable with? Is there further polishing we feel it needs to happen for the motion? I feel certain staff understands our intent here. Am I correct, Courtney?
Correct.
All right. Is everyone comfortable with the wording of this motion? And I'll read it again so we have it clear. The motion on the floor is, and again, motioned by our vice chair and seconded by Ms. Mary Tarver. The request solicitation for proposal advertisement process be inclusive of minority, women, and self-advocate owned businesses.
Want to
So
make
that is-
sure, I just want to make sure that it's clearly stated that also the distribution channel or source is included in here. So that the wording will clearly say that the contract solicitation process includes a distribution channel or source that includes people of color, minority, self-advocate owned businesses. I just want to make sure that the not only the advertisement of it, but also the distribution of it is inclusive.
So I guess my question is, what's the difference between advertising it and distributing it?
I just want to make sure that it's clearly understood. That's all.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't want it to be any like, I just want it to be clear. That's all.
Sure.
So are you comfortable with the wording as it is?
I'll go with the wording as it is.
Okay. And you're on record with your concern, and staff has noted it. I have noted it as well. We definitely want to make sure that we are getting word out to all Louisianans about our contracts and proposals when they're available. So I'll go on record with that, and we'll leave the wording as it is. And so I'll call now for a vote. Do I have any Does anyone abstain from the motion? Hearing no abstentions, does anyone object to the motion? Are there any objections to the motion from Dr. McKee and seconded by Mary Tarver for the request solicitation for proposal advertisement process be inclusive of minority, women, and self-advocate owned businesses? Is there any objection to this motion? Hearing no objection, the motion passes. Thank you.
I'm sorry, was there supposed to be public comment?
All right, I'll go back again. I apologize. Is there any public comment on the motion?
Well, Hyacinth has her hand raised, and there is public comment, but it is unrelated to this motion. So
Okay, I
can
don't want to
read
hear
it.
comment that's not related to the motion. Only comment related to the motion. So there's no public comment present for the motion, correct?
Right. And Hyacinth has her hand raised.
Thank you, Mary Lee. Appreciate you. Okay, Dr. McKee, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, please accept my apologies on this. I did mention some discussion about preference is going to be given to Louisiana residents. I know that that's a motion that's going to be entertained. And when I stated this motion, I did use the word preference. And I guess what I can do is, instead of taking up the time of the committee, I can have more discussion about that tomorrow during DDC.
Yeah, we will
full
present
meeting.
these motions as having come out of here, and you'll have time to have thought about it, and we'll all
Thank you.
have time to
Thank
think
you,
about
Mr.
it,
Chair.
and we can reword it there to reflect what we're wanting to say. And so these will be presented to the full council, and we can discuss them as they're brought up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you. So is there any further public discussion of this motion that's on the floor? And that's the request solicitation for proposal advertisement process be inclusive of minority, women, and self-advocate owned businesses. Is there any public comment on this motion? Hearing no public comment, I'm going to redo the vote, and I apologize for that again. Does anyone abstain to the motion? Are there any abstentions to the motion on the floor? Hearing no one abstain, are there any objections? Does anyone object to the motion? By Dr. McKee and seconded by Mary Tarver for the request solicitation for proposal advertisement process be inclusive of minority, women, and self-advocate owned businesses. Does anyone object? Hearing no objection, motion passes. Thank you. Now, is there any other discussion we need to have or comments that need to be read from the public or taken from the public?
Okay. All right. Hold on. Now that I've stopped sharing my screen, I'm able to see
Okay.
some things. Okay. Looks like Miss Brenda Casse has a couple of comments.
Okay, could we read those?
Sure. Good morning, LADDC Executive Committee. Will the meeting transcript be available? was the transcript feature accommodation be available for this executive committee meeting? Thank you, Ms. Brenda Case. And yes, Ms. Lindsay Abear, I'm sorry, has been transcribing our meetings and is providing our captionist. And if I may take this opportunity to give her a shout out, thank you,
You
Ms. Abear,
certainly may.
for always being available
Yes.
when you can to accommodate us. Thank you. Let's see, look like Mr. Brenton Andrus addressed that comment.
Thank you, Brenton.
Let's see. Okay, so yeah, it was the same thing. So thank you, Ms. Case. If you are having difficulty with viewing or seeing the closed caption, if you look at the bottom toolbar on your Zoom page, there is a white box with the black letters CC for closed caption, and you can click on that and you can show subtitles, and you will then be able to see what Ms. Abear is actually captioning. Or you can hide the subtitles if you don't need to read the subtitles.
Thank you for that clarification, Courtney. It's been some time and they do a good job. And so thank you all for your work, and thank you to our entire staff for the work you're doing. We appreciate you, and we couldn't do our work without each of you. So thank you all. Are there any other public comments? Is there any further comment from the committee before we move to adjourn? Anyone on the committee have anything to bring up before we motion to adjourn? Hearing none, then with no objection, we will adjourn by unanimous consent for today. And again, I want to thank everyone for their participation and involvement. You're key to our work. And so thank you all very much for your time and participation today, both committee and public. Thank you all. And the staff, we couldn't do our work without you. So thanks to each of you as well. Hearing no objection, we are hereby adjourned by unanimous consent. Thank you all. Have a good day.